JD, how's that song from the Junji Ito one go? It's like the ice cream, ice cream. That's that one. Hit me with it.
I banned it from my mind because that episode was so out of pocket by the end.
Yeah.
I screamed.
So let's go, like, you did scream, and now we're gonna meme a little bit. And I feel like there was a little bit where we were considering, are they stepping on our toes? You know, there's like an ice cream meme thing, right? And then they had like the song that was like ice cream, right?
Yeah.
So there's some similarities there. And I really, spoiler alert, I thought it was going to pervert shit. This is episode 2 of the Junji Ito Netflix series. And I still am not convinced it wasn't pervert shit. That guy still threw me off.
Yes. I did think it was gonna go to like a strange pervert angle because, you know, like anything that has to do with freaking children out and, you know, kind of thing, and the parents being concerned, and the part where he's like, no, unfortunately I don't let adults ride in this ice cream truck. I'm like, oh, red flag.
I'd be like, I'm getting my child off of this. This is not happening.
Yeah.
Oh, adults aren't allowed there, and you weird guy, you weird little freak. You're the only adult allowed in your little van. No, that's not happening.
Absolutely not. Unless, hell no. When I was like, well, when they get spoilers, obviously, when they were talking about to the part with the dad was like, are you sure you really want to really want to live with your mom? And then he goes like, oh, do you want to ride in the ice cream truck? I was like, stop.
No, all the parents were way too trusting and also like way too respectful of the rules, because they were like, oh yeah, like look at that, it's just a strange guy with this creepy van and he's bringing all the children in, and then he was like, yo, I don't allow adults in the van.
Absolutely.
And he was just like, well, of course, sir, I wouldn't want to infringe on your good time. And then you just see all the children, again, we're past spoilers here, licking a giant pile of ice cream. That's pervert shit. That's 100% gonna be.
I was like, even watching it was kind of like uncomfortable. I was like, we don't need to zoom in this hard. I think I can stand from 7 feet away seeing this nasty thing happen, and I'd be like, get all these children off of this little butt. Like, oh my god.
They need to be like Men in Black mind wiped after this, because this is gonna scar them. And then, I mean, the ending, I think, kind of saw where it was going at that point when it was like pile. I was like, okay, I think there's gonna be some transformation thing going on here. Which the big reveal is that the children are themselves being turned into ice cream, which means that they're licking piles of children in the back of a van. Pervert shit. But with that in mind, the question arises, what flavor of ice cream do you think you would be if you turned into ice cream?
Not because of like the sort of like coloration of it, but I had a really hard, it would be cookie dough ice cream because we were talking about like Sacramento just a little bit before this, but there's like, I don't remember where it was, but like it's the field trip that young people take in like elementary school where they go gold panning and all that stuff in Sacramento. And there's like an ice cream place at that area, and I got cookie dough ice cream courtesy of my uncle. And this kid punched the ice cream out of my hand right in front of their parent.
A monster.
Yeah, and the parent goes, da-da-da, apologize now. And I was like, hello? And then the parent made the kid, gave their kid like $5 to go up to the thing and buy me another cookie dough ice cream thing. So I was like, that's my flavor solely because I do actually enjoy cookie dough ice cream, but also for that memory. Like if I melted, I would be cookie dough ice cream.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense. I think the kid I got like a mint chocolate chip vibe from when they push his head off, right? And like he was like green on the inside.
Was that happened while I was texting you and I fucking yelped. That shit was.
That was the biggest surprise when the head just like flew right off.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but I think I'd go, if we're excluding like Ben and Jerry's flavors, if we're going like the classics, I think I'd probably be mint chocolate chip too.
Ooh.
Because it's a divisive flavor, and you know. But it's always been my favorite, and because I like the variety between the mint and the chocolate. You know, I always like mint and chocolate. It's just a great flavor. It plays well together. I understand that's not to everyone's taste, and I understand that neither am I. So I think that I have something in common with mint chocolate.
I think this is why you're my friend, because I do like mint chocolate chip ice cream. So I'm in the right place.
Sweet.
with friends. But also, the ice cream on our logo is green. We could have a variety version where some days it'll be mint chocolate ice cream. But yeah,
we could do some colorways on the logo. That could be sick.
I think it's a perfect brown and green, because brown and green, you know. Mm-hmm. But yeah, mint choc, very divisive. Let us know what your favorite flavors are, or what flavor you'd eventually melt into
if you melted
step into
this. Something.
Yeah. But also, if you do hate mint chocolate chip ice cream, don't even reply. Don't be like, fuck that.
That's you, EP. I know you're listening, and you hate most ice creams, especially mint chocolate chip.
Did you ask what the EP would turn into?
I did not, because the EP doesn't like ice cream.
Oh, okay.
At all, but like especially chocolate or mint chocolate chip.
Oh no, EP.
Yeah, so.
Well, I think I will allow it.
Okay, cool. Actually, I think cookie dough is the EP's favorite, so.
Oh, okay.
They're probably a cookie dough person too. It's a good choice. Yeah. And again, we've gone with brown and green again, because cookie dough is like a brown one.
Oh, mint
chocolate chip is predominantly green, so.
Whoa, we were really meant to have this color scheme.
We're big on the themes, yeah. We love earth tones here at Ice Cream.
I do. I'm literally wearing right now. I have forest. All my crew necks are like forest green and brown, so.
Forest green, great. Yeah, I think the only crew neck I have is also forest green. So.
It's such a good color.
Oh no, really? Yeah. So, JD, shall we get into the topics?
Let's get into it.
Mine's a little light, so I think maybe I should go first.
Okay, yeah.
You're feeling like yours is a little light, and then we can both go first.
Okay, all right, yeah. Go, Ben, go.
Okay, so JD, step with me into the world of imagination for a second. Let's get into it. You're in the 1950s. You're the wife in a young family in Texas. You're white, so times are good. So good, in fact, that you're buying your first house. You move in, you're getting the furniture situated, you're working all day at the move, right? And then you head to the kitchen because it's the 1950s and you have to cook, you have to get dinner ready. And it's the first meal at your new house, and your mother came over to help with the move, and so you really do it up to thank her, you know, and to celebrate moving into the new house. You light some candles, you break out the gravy boat, you make some jelly with hot dogs and peas in it, and after dinner, you're hanging out at the table. Your kids are sitting on you and your mother's laps, right? It's real Norman Rockwell shit.
Mm-hmm.
And your husband decides to capture the moment. And, you know, that's it. You go on with the evening, the move goes on without a hitch, and you're settling into your new home. And then a few weeks later, you've filled up the camera roll with memories of your first home buying experience, and your husband takes the film to get developed. You wait a couple of days, you know, life's going on, you're loving the new house and the segregated neighborhood that you moved into, because it's the 1950s.
Oh, God.
You get the envelope and you're excited to see the pictures. You're already thinking about the frames and how you'll eventually fill up an entire wall with family photos. You open the pictures and you're admiring the life you're building being reflected back at you. Smiling faces, excitement, and making a change. And then you notice something strange in one of the photos. Something that doesn't belong. It's the photo of you and your mother at the dining room table. There you are with your kids, all smiling for the camera. But next to your grinning faces is a dangling upside down body. The face is a featureless black mask, but the hair appears to be swept, as if the photo caught them mid-swing next to your dinner table, their head brushing the candle's flames. Who are they? Were they alive? Was someone really there? No one saw the body at the time, but its faceless form haunts you, and likely the house that you've been trying to make into a home. So, JD, that is the backstory for...
I hate this. I hate that you're about to show it to me and I'm about to cover my screen.
No, you gotta open it. Come on, JD.
Oh, man.
Click the link.
I'm dark. Oh, shit. I hit the mic in my beard. Oh my God, I hate this. I'm gonna click it, but I fucking hate it. The way you described it.
Yeah.
If you can tell, my handwriting started getting wonky.
I see the fear creeping in.
Oh my God, I wrote the terror of this photo and then hello with 3 question marks. Bang! It's gonna take me 3 years to...
You got this. You got this.
Oh my God, I hate this, Ben. I fucking hate this. I hate that.
So yeah, you know, anything else to add to this photo that you're observing?
I looked at it for approximately 5 seconds, and because I had my my notebook like this so I could see the family, and I was like, oh, I know it's gonna be on this side. Oh my god, it's burned into my brain.
Yeah.
Like literally, you could be like, JD, there surprises behind you. I'd be so mad. I hate that. I hated it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's been floating around forever, and basically it's 4 people sitting kind of to the right of frame, and then there's a table, and the table set all kind of nice, and then there's like a figure hanging upside down from like the waist up, and they're kind of swinging like over the table. It looks like there's not a super clear face on the figure, and it looks kind of blurry, like it's still in motion. Kind of, it gives like the sense of motion, I think. Yeah, so it's been hanging around since forever, and as far as I can tell, it's been around since at least 2009. So it's been a part of my virtual life since I've pretty much been online. I feel like I saw it probably way back then. And it still like gets circulated today. There's still like listicles that feature this, right? Where it's like the 10 most convincing ghost pictures that you'll ever find, right? If you spend enough time on crack.com, you've probably seen it. If you've spent time on, just anything online, if you look ghost stuff, you've probably seen this picture. We'll include it in the show links and all that. And we love listicles here at Ice Cream You Meme, obviously. And when you're writing one up, having something like this photo that comes prepackaged with a story is a real time saver. And that's a great way to kind of go and be like, yeah, this is number 9 on the list, right? But the story that I covered is only one version of the events. So there's 2 main versions of the story. The one that I covered is a slightly changed up retelling of what we're going to call the Cooper family ghost photo version of events. And then the other story covers a lot of the same beats. It's a young family moving into a new house. They're posing at the dinner table for a photo. And then all of a sudden, a actual corpse, a dead body, falls through the ceiling. And this one, we're going to go with the Cooper family falling body photo. So JD, based on your own preference, what do you think is more compelling as a horror story?
This is a thing. I think I think primarily because this one scares me the most is like the actual body falling through the ceiling.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I have frequently been thinking of like the fact that the only person who has ever seen the attic space in our house is the people who came to like do our solar, and the guy didn't say anything. He didn't go like, there's a shoe up here, there's a body up here, and all that stuff. Yeah. Okay. But also like sometimes, like you and I are cat havers. We're cat carers. Right. Like I know that the sounds in my house are like the cats, right? But sometimes I'm just like, what if that's like the person's here because they know that like we have cats and we're gonna knock every sound to like the cats, and I'm like, what if one day like a person legitimately like falls through the ceiling, and I'm like. Like, that is so much more scary to me than a ghost. Like, yes, I think I would immediately start crying if, like, I took a photo using my, like, digital camera and, like, I looked on the screen and there's, like, but, like, the actual, like, physical body, because, like, you lived with a ghost the whole time, but you lived with a dead body. You didn't smell it. You've been working your... Obviously, houses back then went like $1 million, right? But you still like, I bought this fucking house. I see my future here, and all of a sudden I had to go because there was a literal. It's gonna turn into like an investigation sort of thing. So aside from the horror of the body, it's become a crime scene. You're out of your house because of that, and now you're just like, somebody died in this fucking house. Like more
it's probably
than
more
the
of a
ghost.
directly traumatic experience, right?
Yes.
If you're like eating dinner and then a dead body falls on like your table.
Yeah. Like, because the children in that photo, like, all 4 people in that photo will have experienced that. But, like, if you develop this photo and you were the only one who saw it, you could just go ahead and hide that, and you're the only person, like, bearing that knowledge. But, like, if it was an actual dead body that fell through the ceiling, all 5 of the people, basically, like, the 4 people in the photo and the person taking it would be traumatized. If I was that child, I would never be able to sleep in, like, a house with a roof, ever.
Yeah, you'd never be able to, like, eat at a table. You'd be, like... completely scarred.
Yeah.
No, I think that's totally fair and valid. And like, there's always like those stories about people like living secretly in someone's house, and that's a terrifying, I think, subgenre of stories and events, and whether they're fictional or non-fictional, I think it's pretty effective. The idea that somebody else is like living in your space without you knowing.
Yes.
Let alone dying in your space. That's not great either.
Yeah.
Like I said, rather find a dead body than like a living person in my cupboard or something. But
Yeah.
it's not a great choice. But I think based on the highly scientific method of comparing Google results, the ghost story is a little bit more popular. And I think this could be partially because it's a little bit more compelling, or kind of removes a little bit of like the critical thinking aspect, right? There's a lot more holes to poke in the story of it being like an actual cadaver, right? So why is just the image here? Why is there no... You'd think this would make like a news story at the time, right? Small town Texas, not a whole lot going on probably, so that would be a big story. Why is there no reaction from the people in the photo? Why is it framed that way? Why is there not shit all over the perfectly set like 1950s dinner table if a body just dropped through the ceiling? And if we're talking ghosts, like, no need for the critical thinking. It's it's a ghost. It's fine, right? So aside from the backstory, I kind of want to look at where the photo itself came from, because that's a bit of a mystery as to the authenticity of the photo. The earliest instance of this photo that still exists was posted in 2009 on Ligotti.net, which is a website dedicated to the horror author Thomas Ligotti. I don't know if you're familiar with Ligotti, but
that it was just the idea that it's
like it's a horror author fan site. Yeah, I've never read Ligotti, but I did read his like nonfiction book, The Conspiracy Against the Human Race, which is like a real nihilistic, anti-natalist screed. So if you're ever feeling too positive, I can recommend that as a read. There really isn't much metadata to dig into in this existing photo. The date of the upload was November 14th, 2009. We had the uploader's username, which I kind of dug into a little bit. And we have the title that the user assigned the image, which is a family gathering. And then we also have the file name, which is familywithhangingman.jpg. So what do we really know about the image beyond this? Unfortunately, not a whole lot. I was able to find the user who uploaded the photo to Ligotti.net and like kind of positively ID them, and so has some other people. And he just completely denies having anything to do with the creation of the photo. He says he found it and shared it, and that's pretty much a dead end, right? But I couldn't find an earlier version of the photo, so the original upload is probably lost to time. It could have been on, like an image board. It could have been the website could just be non-existent anymore. Plenty of things could have happened. So there's some claims that back up that the photo has been online, or that there's some claims that say that the photo has been online since the year 2000, but I can't find anything to back that up. And there's also some claims that this is a actual paranormal photo that has circulated in the paranormal community in the pre-internet era. But again, I couldn't find anything that would back that claim up. So I think it's most likely that this image was first uploaded around 2009. And it seems likely that it was probably an image board creation. And there's some evidence that it could have been first posted to Something Awful, which is kind of like a, image board, kind of popular predecessor to 4chan. There's a thread from May 2009 preserved on the Internet Archive where users discuss and work on creating convincing paranormal hoax photos. And Something Awful, you may know, is also where the goat of Internet cryptids was created, right? Slenderman came from a thread there. But this thread in particular was focused entirely on creating images for trolling purposes. So it came out in May, right? And then the first instance that we have of the hanging body, the Cooper family photo, is in November. So I think that there's a 5-month time frame there. I think there's a decent chance that the creator was aware of the thread and maybe even participated in it or used some of the tips that they suggested. Nothing I can do to actually prove this, but it's a pretty tight timeline. And the story that goes with the photo didn't appear until 4 years later in October 15th, 2013 on 2 separate websites. So there was a version posted on Acid Cow. Quote, as the Coopers move into their new home in Texas, they take a photograph of the family sitting together. But as the photo is taken, a body falls from the ceiling. The OP said he wasn't sure if it was real, but he thought it was real creepy. And then there was a Russian version posted on playground.ru. And here's the translation of that. The Cooper family had just moved into their new home in Texas. In honor of the housewarming was laid festive table. At the same time, decided to make some family photos, and when the pictures showed, they showed a strange figure. It seems that someone's body is either hanging down or falling from the ceiling. Of course, nothing like this during the shooting, Cooper's not see. Right, so not a great translation, but we get the point. Kind of the same story, same day, English-speaking and Russian-speaking websites. So I have no way of proving it, but given that they were posted on the same day, I could see this coming from the same poster, or, it's a very tight timeline there. So anyway, by 2014, there were versions of the photo circulating online, which were edited to include the caption, a photo taken of a family's new home, and as it was taken, a body fell from the ceiling. And I think that was like the first time I probably saw it. I definitely remember seeing that on like various kind of image boards and websites. And it's difficult to say exactly where the distinction between it being a ghost or being a corpse came into play. I read some comments that made it seem like it's a ghost in the form of a dead body, which is a pretty shitty deal if you're a ghost, to be a ghost and still be a corpse. But in any case, it was getting posted regularly, and it kept getting posted regularly, and I came across multiple like scary photo listicles from like 2021, 2022. That still listed, and it's like, yeah, this is kind of just a fixture of the paranormal online world now. But I think there's pretty compelling evidence that it's a hoax. Firstly, I think that timeline with it, May, we're going to figure out how to make and disperse trolling paranormal photos, and then November, this is already out there, right, in the online space. And there's some disagreement online about how it was faked. So there's one camp that claims that the image is kind of authentic, right? It is from 1959, it's from the late 50s, and it's like an analog hoax. And we'll call them the old heads, right? So they base the timeline on the clothes in the photo, and they believe that the photo was created via double exposure. And do you know what that technique is?
Yeah, like it makes me think of like how they used to do like the ghost photos way back then. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's basically like when you layer two photos together by exposing the same piece of film multiple times, so you can have kind of two images interacting in the same space. So it creates that would create the illusion that there was a person falling through the roof at the same time as there was a family eating dinner on opposite sides of the frame. And they'll frequently use this to explain why the photo was taken with the people on the right and then the body on the left. They're like, that's why else would you take a photo where it's like people on the right, right? That makes sense, the framing. And then there's a subgroup who believe that it was like an unintentional double exposure. So that can also happen, right? Where if you old film camera, you don't change the film and it kind of takes it twice. So this one I find a little bit harder to believe, because they're saying like it's probably like the husband who drops the camera, and it like got another, the double exposure happened while he dropped it, and then he was like raising his hands up like, oi vey, I can't believe I dropped my camera, but in Texas, So that seems a bit of a stretch to me. But the double exposure believers tend to agree that the photo existed as a paranormal photo long before the internet, and that it's a relic that was unearthed and kind of gained popularity online. But again, the earliest that I was able to find mention or anything related to this photo was 2009, and I personally think that it was a digital creation, because JD, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. JD, what if I could tell you that we know the boy in the photo?
What?
We've identified the boy in the photo. He's come forth on a thread on Metabunk.
Oh my god. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about the boy.
So here we go. Here we have a quote from Robert, and he posted on this thread on Metabunk, and he was basically like, quote, "When my older brother sent me this link, I was floored. We are the two boys in the picture. Well, we were back in 1959. I have many pictures like this one, but not this specific photo. My mother had a habit of throwing away pictures that she didn't like. Eventually, the ones she kept were passed along to me. What annoys me is that somebody got a hold of my family photograph. The story is almost entirely fiction. Our last name is Copper, not Cooper. Does anybody know who did this?" So, the people on Metabunk were not immediately convinced that Robert was who he said he was. But Robert had some receipts, and he shared photos with posters there, and there were photos of him as a child. And I think they're fairly compelling. Here, let's share this with you. And this is not going to be scary, but I want you to take a look at this.
Okay, cool.
And tell me what you think.
I do want to say that, I want to say that Robert is such like a name of that time.
Oh yeah, Robert Fitz is that's like, oh yeah, like 1950s child. little Bobby.
Yeah, Robert
So you got a
Bobby.
picture of him?
Okay, yeah. I am looking at it, and it does. Particularly the child on the right, my right. The far end really does look like. Oops.
The one with the birthday hat, or the one with the hair?
Yeah, the one with the birthday hat really looks like it. Like you could say,
that's
like,
a pretty close match,
well, everyone has these candles,
right.
But the child, specifically the ears, like the people who do like those pictures, the FBI photos are like, we trace them using the ears of the person. Da 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 da.
Yeah, the ears don't lie. So
yeah, the ears
there's
don't lie.
a couple points that kind of match between the photo that Robert provided and the altered Cooper family photo. The boys are a pretty close match. The candles match pretty well, which, you know, it's candles. They look the same a lot. The pattern of the tablecloth, I think, is a decent match, and then the cup on the table is gold rimmed and is another potential match point. But then I think that there is also like a key detail, and I don't know if you're noticing it here.
Are you about to say like it's a terrifying thing?
No, it's not terrifying. It's the difference is that the photo that Robert provided is in color, and then the Cooper family photo is black and white, right? So if we think back to that Something Awful thread, a big part of creating a convincing paranormal photo recommended flipping color photos to grayscale and altering the levels and kind of lowering the contrast in the photo.
Yes.
Adding a vignette, adding a little bit of noise, and then exporting the photo as a lower quality version to hide visible editing goofs behind a layer of pixelation. And so the MetaBunk poster used this methodology on the photo that Robert provided, and so here's the altered version of that photo for you to take a look at.
I will say this. Making it black and white does make it scary.
It makes it scary.
High contrast fear. Yeah, this.
Yeah. So now you got the high contrast black and white one of them, right? Like the first one in the color is kind of like, oh, it's just like a couple of kids, and now it's like, oh, what's going on here? Like this.
Yeah.
Why
if you
is the
showed
wall
this
like
to me
that?
out of context, I'd be like, fucking horrifying, terrifying.
Yeah. Now suddenly Robert looks like it's up to something. Little boy in the hat. Can't trust him.
Yeah, this could be like, Ben, if you were like, this is a photo of, or sent this photo back to the parents
This
to
is
be
the
like,
last photo that you ever saw of your boy.
oh, you know how they do on that TikTok meme of like, this is what the photo would look like if the person went missing, and then it goes from color to like this negative black and white thing.
For sure.
Oh my god. But yeah.
So I think that's kind of compelling that like you can alter it and it basically looks like the Cooper family photo, but that there is a difference between the original color photo and the black and white one, and in that switch from color to black and white, there's also a big drop in quality, right? Like I think there's a lot more detail in the original color photo that Robert provided. So if we're willing to accept that Robert was one of the boys in the photo, I think that the differences between the photos is enough to indicate that the Cooper family ghost photo was probably altered. Right, because why would the same photo in the very close time frame be color? Why would one be black and white? Why are these different films? Why is one horrible quality? So I personally think that the digital explanation is more likely, and there's also some speculation about where and how the body got into the photo, right? Because the body is like, that's the creepy part of the photo. I mean, like the vignetting, the altering is weird. So there's no exact match. No one's been able to find like the model they used. But the general consensus is that it's an image of a ballerina, probably, given like the hand holding and kind of like the way that the hands are kind of like forking up together, right? Doing a little pirouette kind of action, tilting the head. And there's some solid evidence of that. If you look closely at the hanging body, you see what appears to be a necklace. I'm not going to make you look at the body.
I'm not going to. You're like,
creepy.
If you look closely, Ben, I am looking closely.
For the people at home, if you want to take a look at the photo, if you look closely, there's a necklace and earrings that are kind of defying gravity, right? So they're like still hanging the way that they would have been hanging as like a ballerina doing a dance. And the user pointed to the popularity of ballet in the 1960s and 70s, and there was kind of a trend of taking photos of ballerinas performing dance moves in their street clothes. That was like kind of big back then. Like magazines were posting that. So you got the hand positioning, you got the way the neck is turned up, the way that the hands are moving, and the visible necklace and earrings. That kind of all gives credence to the idea that this body was a Photoshop dancer, likely from the 50s to 70s era. So there's still questions, of course. Robert posed a couple himself. One, does anybody know who did this? And two, how would I know that this won't happen again? And unfortunately, the answer to Robert's questions are we really have no idea of knowing who made these photos. And we have no way of guaranteeing that this won't happen again to Robert or anyone else. It was, yeah. Some people clung to Robert's claim that his mother had a habit of disposing photos and that she didn't like. And they accused him of trolling himself and trying to seed a larger conspiracy about the photo. And I personally, I don't see it that way. I think that we're in the digital age now, and we're more conscious of, or at least we should be more conscious of the evidence that we leave behind and photos and letting those people have access to those, right? But I think that people always kind of leave evidence of themselves behind. They always leave photos. Like, I'm sure I could walk into a thrift store and find someone's family's photos for sale. It's not like impossible to believe. People don't always dispose of things in the responsible way. Yeah.
You think of like estate sales, like people accidentally or on purpose sometimes sell like entire like logs of like family photos. So I don't think that that's a key to like, oh, he's building mystery around it. I do think like back then it was just like, I hate this picture. Bye. Goodbye.
Yeah, I'm sure that back then you're not thinking about like the internet in 30 years or anything too. Like, you're just like, okay, I'm done with this, or yeah, I'm dead. This person's dead. I don't need these photos anymore. They're gone, and I don't care what happens to them. Whatever. But also, making fun of people's family photos is a big part of internet culture. I think that the website Awkward Family Photos started in May 2009, which was the same month as the Something Awful thread about faking ghost photos. Therefore, it's the same. No, okay. I'm not saying that there's a conspiracy here necessarily, but the energy of the 2009 internet was really ready to take full advantage of people's openness at the time with their personal photos, right? This is kind of like peak Facebook years, and then a year later in 2010 is when the revenge porn website Is It Anyone Up started, right? And I think, are you aware of that website? There's a pretty good documentary about it on Netflix, but here's a quote that kind of sums up the attitude from all-around piece of shit and founder of the website, Hunter Moore. No one put a gun to your head and made you take these photos. It's 2011. Everything's on the internet. So he really had that energy, and he's very unrepentant, I think, to this day, about starting a website for revenge porn. And as somebody who lived through the early 2010s, I don't think that this viewpoint was unique to Hunter. I think that the Cooper family photo is a solid entry in the 2009 internet time capsule, right? On the kind of the lighter side, we have Awkward Family Photos, which is viewed with a lot of nostalgia as a piece of like late 2000s internet culture. And I think the longevity of the Cooper family photo kind of speaks in some ways to the same nostalgia for early internet culture. It's an old family photo hit with an old school Photoshop job. And it also speaks to the general attitude of the time that if something is on the internet, it really does belong to anybody. So that's pretty much what I got. It's kind of a mystery as to how the photo came into being. But it's most likely just a hoax. It's just somebody left their photo out and somebody else photoshopped it.
You really don't think about, like, because I do think about now, like, where are, like, the old photos that I took with, like, a film camera, like, when I was in middle school, like, what did I do with them? Like, I can't remember where they are. So if those things end up on the internet, at least I'd be like, yeah, I took that in 6th grade. Yeah, I kind of think, but that's kind of crazy that I have never seen this photo, right? And maybe because I stay away from, like, images that could be burned into my brain.
Sure, right.
But I think if I saw this, I'd just be like, this could be made up, but what if it's real? I get you already pointed out a lot of things that I was gonna say, but it was like harken back to like the Slenderman thing where like photos were created for a specific purpose of this like competition of like create the like most interesting,
making something more convincing.
But I do enjoy that there's like two versions of this story, and you're here to decide whether like what one is scarier to you and what's going to live in your brain more, because like for me, I've decided the actual body is much more terrifying than the ghost idea of it. But like maybe to someone else, like, well, at least that's like a natural explanation, but what if it's a ghost and you don't move out of the house and it stays in there forever, blah blah blah.
But
Oh my God. And also, Robert, shout out to you for doing your best to defend you being in that photo.
Yeah, Robert really brought like that boomer energy of like, who did this?
Can this be stopped?
Who would do this to my family? It's like just an asshole. Not really anybody with ill intent.
But yeah, the double exposure business of it, I hadn't even thought of it because like my mind was immediately like, this has to be Photoshopped, zoom it in, see the pixels. But yeah, if it's a double exposure of that time, that family was a silly little family. They're like,
they were having some goofs and gaffes if they were doing that.
And I did think of like how it was framed so like nicely of like, if this was like a ghost photo, yes, this, why did you take a picture of this like entirely large space for like absolutely no reason, unless like the person's gonna be like, oh, actually behind this body is like a painting that I really enjoyed and I wanted to put into this photo, because like that kind of thing. But in my mind it's still
it's
like,
a lot of negative space to leave as like a photographer, being like, yeah, just have you guys all in like this third of the photo, and then leave some space for the ghost.
But yeah, that is such an interesting photo. Like for someone who hasn't seen the photo like ever, I hate the picture. I don't care if it's real or not. I just hate the picture. I just don't want to look at it. It does the whole, I hadn't ever thought about it, but I think I wouldn't be as scared of it if it was like a very crisp scan of like a film photo, because I'd just be like, oh, that's a dead body. It came through the roof. But like the high contrast graininess, yeah, it's kind of gross. It's a gross photo. But yeah, how did it feel for you to not have like a concrete end of like, I found exactly why this happened, who took this? Like, is this one of the more like, for you, like there's no definitive end? Or
I guess it's kind of like, I just view it as like a part of where in the internet culture was at the time, because like everybody was posting stuff on like Facebook and not really caring about privacy. Everyone was just like, all our photos are out there, or again, like, you know, I'm just throwing away photos, I don't care what happens to them, it doesn't matter. It's not like, we think about things a little bit differently now. I think it kind of reflects how the culture has changed, especially around like privacy and around like the media that we produce in our lives, where I don't think that Robert probably would have conceived of something like this happening.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it, because I think eventually once we get into the more like low-key niche stuff that people still talk about, but we won't have an ending conclusion to, of course there's going to be some frustration or some sense of like, well, I wasn't the one who was able to uncover it. And I think we're going to get deeper into like just really niche weird internet things, where we are going to be spending more time like on forums, like where just random people are, because like journalists aren't writing about this kind of stuff, right? We're getting into like what we can dig up, but not necessarily what has been written about or is in publications. It's not as poppin' as like the grinning man, but it's as there's some people who are still thinking about it these days and kind of are like, hey, and if you're one of those people listening, hey, what's up? It's
shout out.
Yeah. I think for me, towards the end, I was like, if Ice Cream You Meme was scooped by Discovery Plus, and we had the budge, I think this would be one of the episodes that I push for like expanding. We actually go and find Robert. We actually go and try to see where this photo is. Let's look at Robert's photo collections. We're in Robert's house and we say, what's this person's name? Where's your sibling, kind of thing. But like, this would be one of the episodes that I'm like, okay, this is episode one.
I would love more information on Robert, like, because like the Copper Cooper thing is interesting, and some people were like, well, it has to be real, because how is the letters only one letter off? And I don't have an answer to that. I don't know. But I'd love to talk to Robert more and suss him out myself and kind of like see what the vibe is there, and like how close the story is. Like, are you from Texas? Like, where are you? Where were you at the time? Was this a new house? Like, how close is the story that is circulating to your actual life? Like,
this is writing this down as like the episode 1 of Ice Cream You Meme, the TV show on Discovery Plus.
And you know, Robert at this point probably in his 70s, so Discovery Plus, we gotta get on this
now. Have to get it while it's
preferably. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was good. Particularly as someone who has never seen the photo and hates scary pictures.
Yeah, it's the most I've ever looked at this photo. It's definitely like one where usually I like would see it and kind of like, I don't like it, and I'm gonna keep scrolling. Like it's creepy. Like I don't like the story. I don't want a body to fall on my table.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that you even were like, okay, there's a necklace, there's some earrings that are. I literally was just like, there's a person hanging on the side. Disgusting. I hate this. Oh,
yeah, and
so
I think
gross.
that's like part of like the something awful thing was like try to make it so that people don't want to look at it too much. Like the more you look at it, the more of a hoax it's gonna look like. But if you just kind of like quick like breeze over it, yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. And I do enjoy that there's mentions of creepy websites and personal privacy on the internet, because that my bit also touches on that just a winky, just a little bit. But yeah, are you ready for my not clickbait gone wrong at 3 a.m. story?
I'm ready. Let's get deep.
All right. Okay, so as a fun way to end this, I wanted to see if I could watch a birthing video.
Sure.
After all, it's apparently part of the class that people take to prepare for a birth. And some people even watched one in school. I talked to my friend. She said she has seen it like for a class of some sort and all that stuff. But unfortunately, it's one of the many real life things of this world that scares me. I think of myself as a baby and what size I was when I came out.
Yeah.
How is that possible? Sort of like a cursory glance at the childbirth wiki page was enough to send my eyes to the moon, not because of like the birthing diagrams of the baby's head popping out and all the various ways that a baby can turn itself around in the womb, but because of like the cost of childbirth. In the United States, but as well
that's terrifying as well.
Yeah, and as well as the rates of like maternal mortality, most especially for Black women in the United States. But you must now be wondering, people listening, even though you've seen the title of this episode, JD, the show is about memes and the internet, not about healthcare in the United States. Yes, this is 100% about memes and the internet, but I'm not here to scare you about childbirth. I'm here to scare you about the internet. Ka-chow. Okay, so today I'm talking about Birthlog, which is a creepypasta created by The Littlest Fear. In the story, the main character randomly Googles their own name, then finds a creepy website called birthlog.com. On this fairly blank but eerie-looking website, the main character sees very strange cryptic info on it and then sees a series of numbers that kind of touches their brain. They click on the numbers, a video of a woman giving birth and holding their baby, and in the end of the story they realize that the woman is their mom and they are the baby. Very fucked up story and all that stuff. But so let's talk about the characters in the story, because Ben, you and I have been discussing a sort of figure in a scary movie recently, and when I read this, it was in the back of my mind. So the main character is this person who's just Googling themselves. They're the everyman. There's no attached description of the character. Then we have the mom, who is in this story, a heavily pregnant lady in medical, in the sort of like the robe that they put you in when they're like, we're going to examine your whole situation. Other than that, there's no visible ID to her. Kind of like she could be your parent, your mom as well. Then we have the three figures in it who you might be thinking of later as this thing, but we have tall figure, which is the tallest, wearing a hatted black mask with a leathery sewn design to it. The odd thing about all of them was the visible lack of zippers and buttons on their clothes. So for the shorter masked person, the shorter of the trio wore a completely white plague mask that looked like it was made of latex. And there was a last one, which is a brown masked individual who wore a brimmed hat, one that almost comically resembled a gardening one. And we had been talking about...
Oh, yeah.
What was that one movie that I was like, what the fuck is this? But cenobytes, and when I was reading through this part, I was like, please, God. Right. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, what a connection. But yeah, so those are the sort of five main figures in the story itself. The two that could be in place of you, kind of like a self-insert situation, and then these three figures that like are spookily dressed, kind of like if you just looked at those cenobites kind of thing. So you now know of the birth log, but I
do have a question. So in comparison to the Cenobite thing, is there a BDSM connotation here as well? Because I think that was kind of like a big part of the Hellraiser fear. It was like the scary bondage people.
I think this individual who was giving birth was sort of like, you know, creepily tied down, not in like the regular like birthing where it's like you're laying down and your legs are kind of propped open so that if it's the birthing through that canal, that kind of thing. But I think they had the aspect of like tied down and drugged.
Okay, we're going a creepy direction here. Okay, cool. I mean, aside from the pretty creepy bondage people, like gimp suits, we're going weird with it. Okay, cool.
But yeah, so now that you know these figures, the 2 self-inserts and these 3 cenobites, what are the implications of the birth log, right? So the existence of a birth log requires and implies many things. Firstly, that there is an organization that performs births and uploads them to an online database. Second, there's a population of people who have given birth with this organization, and they may or may not know that their birth event was documented and uploaded onto this database. Third, there are many births documented on this website, meaning that there are a lot of clients at these strange birthing centers. And I'd love to invite you all to sit and think of this just for a little bit. Sort of consider like, why would that be needed? Is it educational? Is it sort of like a database situation? But yeah, sort of just let that simmer into your mind as we talk through it. So kind of aside from those like kind of weird implications, like sit with me for a second and wonder why all of that could be scary. Sure, it's just a database of a bunch of births, but without a direct intent. Educational, fetish content, documentary, etc. It's kind of strange for this to exist without like reason. In the story itself, which I really encourage you to read, it's very short. The author mentions several things, and let's touch on the first thing that they mentioned, which is the dark web. The dark web, for those who don't know, is a subset of the deep web that is intentionally hidden, requiring a specific browser, Tor, familiar to people, to access, according to Darren of Keep Security. According to the article, the dark web holds many of your fears about it, right? You can buy credit card numbers, all manners of drugs, guns, counterfeit money, stolen subscription credentials, hacked Netflix accounts, which you might need if they said that they're not doing the actual Netflix thing anymore. They're like, we're just kidding.
You guys,
stop trying to kill
don't
us.
cancel. No.
Right? But just in case, the dark web, right? So they have those and hacked software that help you break into other people's computers. So that's, in general, what people think exists on the dark web, right? All kinds of nasty stuff. Although it does have like a sinister tone to it, and it's mostly negative, it's mostly referenced in a negative light. There is like some positive value to it for locations that don't have access to a wider internet due to country restrictions on internet, free speech, and other things. But the most common idea of the dark web, the deep web, is that bad, right? The dark web is sort of this thing that you know off the back of your mind from some movie or because you had an edgy teen past. At times, it could be used to fearmonger among people who are still bewildered by the capability of the internet, leading them to think that all of it truly holds some guy in a mask ready to steal your entire shit. Most of the time, even if your active internet escapades involve scrolling through TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, or some other dominant social media network, you still have some fear that it can turn worse than it already might be on those hell sites. We love you, TikTok. In the story itself, there's a sort of theme of like the internet is a scary place within the strangeness of the website itself, and also explicitly in the lines, the internet is both a wonderful and heinous creation, a vast digital landscape compiled of untold gigabytes of information, and I think it's advisable not to dig too deep while searching on the internet, because you can only dig so deep before you uncover something that you know you never were supposed to, right? Sort of like the internet is a scary place, don't spend too much time on it, stick to where you know where things go, right? Amidst the weirdness of the scary idea of such a website existing, it becomes a cautionary tale, sort of like a moral story, which is take care of how you navigate the internet. Even if your curiosity is out of genuine interest or boredom, you might never know. You never know what you might run into. It's just like those stories that we all know and we're intimate with, right? Someone tells you about this video that they saw and you watch it because you were bored and you want to impress your friends, and you learn for the first time that maybe some of your friends are fucked up or just have very bizarre interests that no one else can handle. Consider that one meme that's like, Pharrell shows Jay-Z 2 girls in 1 cup for the first time, and it's like, kind of thing, which, to break everyone's heart, is actually not a photo of Pharrell showing Jay-Z 2 girls 1 cup for the first time.
JD. Whoa, this is the biggest revelation we've had on this podcast.
Yeah, I actually went and Googled this because I was like, you know what, here's a meme within a meme that we're going to talk about, which it's actually a snippet from a making of video with Pharrell and Jay-Z, where Pharrell calls Jay-Z over to show him something, but it's a song that he made, right? And I'm so sorry to everyone for breaking that spell, but this is the nature of the show, meme history. I wasn't going to let you go on that.
Yeah, I just love imagining Pharrell, like, you gotta see this.
Yeah, because the face that he makes, like, you're kind of convinced that, like, oh yeah, this is him definitely showing it. But it's just like Jay-Z is making like this sort of face of like he's deeply impressed with the song that like Pharrell made, and Pharrell's just like, look at this, I did this, I impressed Jay-Z, kind of thing. But yeah, speaking though of fucked up videos, and one other thing I considered about this is the idea of snuff films, which is if you read the whole thing. It is a video. It's like a CCTV video type of thing where the woman is giving birth. The people do some kind of weird thing during it. A snuff film, if you're not aware of it, is a type of film that shows or purports to show scenes of actual homicide. Additionally, they seem to be made with some intent to profit. Obviously, the snuff section is important, whether it be real or not. So as the author's mom is, or the character's mom is alive, the snuff film gets ruled out. So we then move on to shock sites or shock content, which Ben like mentioned just a little bit with the website that I let go of in my mind because I didn't want to remember. Yeah, right. So some other examples of which are like Rotten.com, Ogreish, better now known as LiveLeak, and BestGore.com. Sites like this hosted videos that you might know off of the back of your mind, even if you've never seen them, such as like 3 Guys, 1 Hammer, and the main star of Don't Fuck With Cats, Luca Magnotta's 1 Lunatic, 1 Ice Pick. A shock site, according to the wiki, is a website that is intended to be offensive or disturbing to its viewers, though it can also contain elements of humor or evoke, in some viewers, written in parentheses, sexual arousal, which I do have to mention completely saved my ass. I was researching specifically these things with, like, shock site, Wikipedia, right? I was like, FBI. I was looking at the Wikipedia. I wasn't looking for the videos, right? Anyway, without the straight up intention of the birth log listed on the site or in the author's story, we can't be so clear in saying that this is just someone documenting births or for like educational reason. Like a dark conclusion is that this is some branch of the genre of like shock sites and shock videos, the same way that gore sites are a specific branch of shock sites, right? And everyone at home, you're listening to this and you're going to be like, JD, these are pregnant people giving birth. Who would? I encourage you to look at yourself in the mirror and think to yourself very quietly, lights fully on. We're not trying to manifest anyone, but stare into your own eyes right now. Listen to me. People are complex creatures, right? You're going to say, JD, but these are pregnant. Shh. That's it. Do you still want to ask that question, or have you answered it yourself? Because my search history is suffering right now. I don't want to be like, here's a specific example. Right, yeah. You can figure that out on your own.
Kind of hot if you think about it. Rule 34 exists. It's kind of
just okay. If you're gonna look in the mirror, turn on the lights. I don't want you to be in our email being like, JD, I accidentally manifested the Bloody Mary. Okay, leave me alone. Anyway, to pose the idea that this could be a shock site within the universe of the author is not too far-fetched, I hope, because anything goes on the internet, as Ben has posed to you with the photo of the Cooper family. But if any networks are still listening, honestly, we don't always do like these kinds of weird things, you know? We do lighthearted stuff too. Anyway, Ben, you might say yes, you might say no, but are you familiar with the concept of shock sites, gore sites, outside of me sending you that screenshot of my sources.
Yeah, I definitely am. I mean, I've just spent like enough time on the internet. I'm always kind of not really. I've never really been the kind of person that like wants to see gore. Like, I'm a little easy queasy. Like, I don't like seeing people get hurt. Even like funny falling videos can kind of push me over the edge a little bit. So like the idea of like watching someone, get assaulted or something is not pleasant. I think probably the most direct contact that I've had, aside from like accident, like those kind of links where it's like it clicks it and it's like it's a trap kind of thing where you're like, oh, you think you were gonna see somebody get hit by a truck and now you've seen somebody get hit by a truck, which I hate. Was that I had like a computer from like an uncle, I think, and there was only one file in the videos, and I opened it, and it was like an Al-Qaeda beheading video.
Hello?
Which is not, it's not a shock site, but I'm not sure how he got that, but it was like a beheading video, and that was definitely intense. So I'm not the main audience. I wouldn't say I'm like a frequent flyer there, but I definitely am aware of it, and when I see the live leak logo, I generally click off of the video. I'm like, this is not where I'm going.
Yes. Yeah. I am also of that same train. I know that it exists. I don't ever want to see it. Do not go into our email and send us like a fucked up Rick roll, but it's some person getting hit by a fucking truck. I will find you one way or another. But yeah, I think, for me, I don't look for that. I don't take pride. I had friends in high school, middle school who were like, yeah, did you see this video? This person getting hit. And I'm like, happy tree friends makes me cry. I hate Happy Tree Friends. What are you talking about? I feel like there's like a certain degree where like I don't know how many people actually were watching that. Like, because I feel like in my high school, kids were like, "Hey man, have you seen like what's the one? Kids in the Sandbox, or like Three Guys One Hammer, or what was it, Mr. Hands?" And I'm like, no, I don't want to. And it's like I feel like you probably haven't either. Like I think you're just like describing it based on shock. It's based on shock value, right? Like it's either like I'm tougher than you because I can watch this like fucked up shit, or it's just like you're like you can't handle it probably. And it's like I don't want to handle it. Like I really don't want to see someone get fucked to death by a horse. That's not on my bucket list. Exactly. Like Mr. Hands is something I know because someone at school was talking about it, and I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Why did you watch that?" I'd be like, I'm like, I remember my cousins very much enjoying watching Happy Tree Friends, and I had a younger nephew who would like watch with them, and he cried at the same episode that I was like, stop this shit. But it was the one where one of the characters, like, a tree fell on their leg and they were cutting it off with a spoon, and then turns out they were cutting off the wrong leg. I was like, why is this on demand Xfinity? Hello?
Yeah, that's definitely was like a bizarre. Yeah, the gore thing has never really appealed to me. Like I think even like in The Simpsons, like Itchy and Scratchy when I was a kid was like too much for me. And then like Happy Tree Friends, I definitely had friends and like people I knew that were like, oh, this is so funny, and I was just never like, I don't like this. It's not for me. I don't think this is disturbing me.
Yeah, we're of the same train of we know it because people talk about it, but also to kind of stay away from it because I don't want to like. So please. I am a baby. I will not even look at the pictures that Ben sent.
We like scary stuff like ghosts and goblins. Okay, like I don't want to see somebody die. Please.
I don't like. That's not even. Oh my god. Anyway, following that sort of like scare fest of the existence of actual real life murder films on the internet, let's do a little exercise on moral panics regarding the nebulous concept of the internet, right? Think about the stories regarding the adult man behind the screen luring young people into terrible situations, which was real. The internet dares and challenges that expose young people to dangerous situations, sometimes real. Consider the internet you were a part of when you were first starting out, sort of what people were telling you about the internet, what goes on in the internet, how you explore the internet, what adults were saying about stranger danger on the internet. I was particularly fart. I was fart. Yeah, because I was reading the word Friendster. I was part of the Friendster and MySpace era. I don't think I officially had a Facebook until end of high school, going into college kind of thing. But before we go further, what makes a moral panic? Ben, my homie, you and I are pretty familiar with moral panics as internet people and hosts of this show. How do you think the moral panic of the internet came about and sort of works with this piece of what you know of this piece of like, this is a story of a person finding
are we discussing like a
weird shit
particular moment in like moral panic around the internet? Because I feel like they crop up so frequently with like, they're like showing your kids scary videos, or like they're trying to make your kids sexual, showing them sex vids, or they're trying to show your kid, you know, like anything it is. Generally speaking, it's showing your kid something is a big part of the fear, or exposing children to something that they probably shouldn't see, or depending on your morality, just feel like is offensive or something, you know, whether that's like satanic stuff, or these days like just like LGBTQ people existing is an issue for a lot of people. I mean, yeah, so moral panics can really be about anything, but generally speaking, it's kind of like it's a scare tactic that is used to kind of rally people up by saying that somebody's coming after your kids, right?
Yeah, okay. So as I go through this section, Ben, feel free to add on. Tell me I'm wrong. Fight me. Just kidding. First fight recorded on the podcast. Anyway, so if you're not as familiar with moral panics, or this is your first entry episode, Ben has talked about moral panics quite some time, satanic panic, all those kinds of things. But yeah, so what makes up a moral panic? First is identifying sort of like this object or subject to pay attention to, declaring some sort of like evil or bad thing. Then we have this evil, bad thing presented on like a surface level, just as tip of the glacier is discussed. This creates like a sense of anxiety developed from the perceived bad or good. Then we have a set of people who aim to manage or fight that bad thing that's been like established, whether it be like experts arising to provide solutions on how to navigate the thing or like eradicate it. This could be like laws, guidelines, bans, etc. Consider like laws on like banning sorts of like sites, blah blah blah, those kinds of things, or like those camps that parents send their kids to like rid them of like the obsession of like a sort of something like video games, like those kinds of things. And then these sort of like panics get addressed with the aid of like the moral police, which might eradicate the issue or further like exacerbate it, because you're like, you're stopping me from watching this, I'm gonna go and look for it some more, does it even exist, kind of thing. And as Ben said, it's like youth focused, considering what your kid is doing on the internet without your permission, without your guidance, right? And what they could be exposed to and what they're learning, kind of thing. And right now, if you're like, oh, the ice cream you meme is fine, it's not.
Yeah, we're converting children. That was very
right, it's not
pulling up
for
the
your
ice
children.
cream.
Your child is listening to, yeah. Your child is listening to an LGBT, non-binary, blue hair pronouns person right now.
There are no adults allowed in the van. Only children.
No adults.
With the pile.
But yeah. That's why we're talking about how we would be cookie dough and ice cream in the beginning. Because we are, baby. But yeah. Consider, though, in most recent years that adults are actually more heavily impacted by the internet's strangeness and terror more so than young people. Slate's Sherman Dorn discusses this in We Worried About Kids in the Internet, We Should Have Been Worried About Adults. Dorn discusses the idea that young people are particularly vulnerable due to undue influence and that there are always attempts to protect them from this. However, we should also consider that they have very little power to do much about the thing they're influenced about, right? A kid could love the living shit out of Blue's Clues, but can they go out and buy merch for it? Can they find that thing if they have access to it, right? They can access certain things within reason, right? They can go and watch that YouTube channel, but are they going to be able to buy something about it? Blah, blah, blah. And then how much of that child can you influence when they have such a short period as a child? Adults, though, have a longer lifespan in the adult space where you have money and all the time in the world to be influenced. You are not immune to propaganda Garfield meme, right? Anyway, yeah, I'm not. Anyway, the internet is bad is a sort of general moral panic that has more moral panics inside of it, right? You could then consider this small piece of media about finding a weird video of your parent giving birth on the media You can consider the small piece like an agent of moral panic if you want to be like extremely tough on it just a little bit, or at least another story that further aids or enforces the badness and the strangeness of the internet. If I can find my mom's birthing video on the internet, what else can I find, kind of thing, right? Could I then see a video of me right now being live cast to the internet? I'm like looking at a specific corner of my room, right? That kind of thing. But we're gonna pause now from the fear aspect of it and go for curiosity instead right now. I titled this part, I love the 90s for some reason, but I read the story and I was particularly curious about the moment that this person tells their friends that they found this website. So I'm going to read the section, right? It goes like this. I nervously asked a few more technically minded friends if they had ever heard of a website called Birthlog. They had shaken their heads and after a few searches on the internet turned up nothing. Not even on the dark web, which one or two of them were actually brave or foolish enough to frequent. There was nothing. Absolutely nothing. Was as if all traces of it had been purged from the face of the planet. I admit that I am an adult, not a trial run adult. We have been adults now for 10 years or so. By law, not by consent or will. Because if they were like, are you an adult? I'd be like, no, not even. Ask me when I'm 45, baby. But I wouldn't look this up as an adult. In my most stable mind, I would not look this up. As a teen, would I have looked it up and sacrificed the family computer? No. Because once again, we told you, we're babies on this. We're babies here. We're infants. Like, we don't want to look at scary pictures. But, okay. My brother has a baby book that my mom has kept up for a long time. It documented the song, like the hit song of the year, which was Baby One More Time. The top movie of the year, what weight he was, how long it took him to be born. Insane. And as well as like our family tree at that time. It was painstakingly done to document this very sweet baby boy. You could see him go from like this very wrinkly baby to this like child that people often poked at because he was incredibly light-skinned and whatever else that adults were very weird about with babies. I periodically look at it to see how my brother like went from this like little child that's like this big, this baby, to like someone who's like 2 inches taller than me. That's insane. I don't have this because my parents assumed that we would be going back to the Philippines periodically. My childhood memories are held hostage by the fact that I refuse to go back, right? And sometimes I get a little sad that I wasn't able to like provide a baby photo for my yearbook senior photo. Like they do like, here's old you and here's baby you, right? They just use like a random photo of me, right? I get a little sad that I can't show people like the fact that I was a very big baby and I had a full head of curly hair.
You just have to believe me. You have to believe me. I was.
Yeah, you have to believe that I was like this fucking big. Like I was so huge. At 2, I was like more than half the size of my grandma.
Okay.
I was a big fucking baby. Yeah. Like I'm short now. Yeah, I'm very short now, but I think I just grew in that span a little. Yeah, but I sometimes I look at the pictures that I took of like my baby pictures the last time I was in the Philippines, and I posted on Facebook, and I'm like, I only have these 4 pictures. These 4, and I would do a lot to get them back, save for maybe like going back and asking for them. Like if I had a magic spell, yeah, but like, could you just go back? No, it's expensive. Anyway, then I'm not sure what your parents and family did with your baby photos, but I think many of my photos, or for people maybe in the same age range and above, are mostly like held in like VHS tapes, printed photos, SD cards that sit somewhere. Like SD cards even were like way late kind of thing. They're sitting in someone's basement or at the top of like an old china cabinet. To add to this was all during the mid to late 90s in the Philippines, where we usually just had a film camera and a thick ass VHS camcorder for baby content. So I don't personally know if my VHS tapes have survived the way that I wanted them to. Like several years ago, we had taken the wedding video VHS to Costco to have it like digitally saved to a DVD because I was like, this thing is gonna rot, right? Yeah. Additionally, I have a few friends who discuss the normalization of the pain and struggle of birthing. I'm childless and choose to be child-free due to an insane amount of responsibility as the oldest child. Despite this, I still want to know what like birthing entails, right? To prepare myself for others around me who might, and it's absolutely insane, but people do it all the time, and that's like intense, right? If a friend of mine came to me one day with a very confused look on their face about this website that they found called Birthlog, I think with all that sort of like adulthoodness in me, I might have been like, do I do it? Like, right now I'd be like, I 100% wouldn't do it. But like with all
For
this,
the
I'd be
homie,
like,
you wouldn't look it up?
then if you came to me and you were like, I saw a website, Birthlog, I would do it in solidarity because I know it's in your mind already. You've seen it. And I'm like, but I'm going to do it, Ben. You can't be the only one
you would look at the horrors I share. That's like what this podcast is anyway. So.
Yeah, I'd be like, Ben, fuck. And then this podcast would go on a hiatus because we'd both be like sitting in our individual rooms going like, what the fuck? We don't want to go on the internet anymore, not even to post this podcast.
Yeah, we're going analog now. It's no longer about memes. So.
Yeah. We're sending letters to each other with printed photos, right? And I'm like thinking of that, like, would curiosity kill the cat? And instead of going to curiosity, go back into fear. Because after all, this is not something that you want to ask your parents about, like where you were born or when for like an astrological birth chart. This is probably positive, like potentially revisiting the potential of like a traumatic birth for your parent. But Ben, if I had come to, because I already said, Ben, watch your answer, because I did say if you came to me, I would watch this. Okay. What about you, Ben? Like if someone, maybe not even me. Like, if someone was like, hey, I saw this website called Birthlog, and I saw this. Would you have tried to look for it, or is it like, why?
I would need to know
would you
why
have done it?
they would want me to look at it. I mean, the name itself does not really appeal to me, so I'd have to be, like, sold on it a little more. You'd have to give me, like, yo, man, it's crazy. I saw my own, like, is this, you think this is, like, illegal? Like, are we this, what the fuck is going on here? Like, you need to, like, sell me on it a little more. Just be like, hey man, there's a website called Birthlog, and that's not enough information. I'd be like, no, I'm not just gonna go there. I don't. Why? What's on there? The name seems already a little off. I think there's more something going on there. Yeah. But yeah, if you came to me or somebody came to me and was like, I need you to look at this, I would. Yeah.
Yeah. It really all depends on the person. There's a couple of friends in my head who, if they came up to me and they said, I saw this website called Birthlog, it has videos of people giving birth, I'd be like, no, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, the person
quiet.
here matters in terms of like, because you do have those people that are like, I like showing you fucked up shit and watching how you react. And I'm like, if they called me Birthlog, I'd be like, this is gonna be fucked up, and I know what you're trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah, if the same people in high school who are like, I've seen 1, 2, 3 guys, 1 ice pick, blah blah blah, and they're like, I saw Birthlog, I'd be like, I don't care. I'd be like, it's probably fucked up. You probably deserve seeing that. Like, this is the one thing that should stop you from seeing it. Like, if that doesn't change it for you, I'd be like, you need to talk to somebody, talk to your parent, okay, something like that. But honestly, if my brother was like, I saw this shit, I'd be like, one, why did you do that, but also show me. Right? But just in the grand scheme of things, Birthlog as a concept might not be that scary. Consider though that it could be like fridge horror, which is something that we discussed all the way back when I did my Junji Ito moment, which is individual pieces make it scary the more you think about it. The unknown reason behind the website makes it scary. Why would people do this? Who are the people behind this website? Who are all these people giving birth? Do they know it exists? Why would anyone need this? What's the sort of moral of the whole of Birthlog, not just the birthing video event? Is there a morals of the story, blah, blah, blah? And is it like, don't get too cocky on the internet lest you wreck yourself watching a horrifying thing? Is it like the internet is cool, it has all these things, but it's scary, right? And that's basically in a Birthlog, because this is the episode that finally cements my history with the FBI or the CIA. Not the episode where we talked about the CIA definitely killing people or the FBI just sticking their little fingers in everything. It's the fact that within 5 minutes, I Googled dark web, C-section, shock sites, snuff films, one after the other without any reason. But yeah, that is me and Birthlog.
So congratulations for being on some lists. I think that's big for you. Yeah, much like our shared town of Vallejo. You're making some lists now.
I'm making some lists.
We are there. So
Oh.
yeah, I think that's a really interesting thing. I mean, like that idea of like you don't want to pry too much on the internet, I think kind of does like exist in like a similar thing to like unspeakable horrors, right? Like you're kind of gazing into the abyss, in a way. And I think with like the last couple of years, like things like Everything Everywhere All at Once, I think the discussion of just how much we are exposed to, like passively, I think that our interactions with media have changed in a very different way too. I think like TikTok is kind of different from like, this seems like an old internet story in some ways, right? Where you like have to like, hey man, go to this website. Where now you're kind of just like, well, this is like the endless feed. Like whether you're on YouTube Shorts or TikTok or anything, everything is following this model of just like, we're going to keep rolling content. It's just going to keep coming at you. So I don't know if it could be updated in like a way that kind of way, if it could reflect that, or if it has to be that kind of like, I'm digging too deep kind of thing. Because I think that there are very different ways of interacting with media and different kind of horrors, right? Like, I think in some ways now we're in this kind of like overload thing, right? Where I think in a very personal, psychological way, we're constantly being like overloaded with information. We're being overloaded with content. Where I feel like there was and still is an element too, where you can't really get into these rabbit holes that you drive yourselves down on the internet, of like going in like increasingly darker things, going into increasingly weird spaces of the internet. But the difference is kind of like who's driving. Is it the algorithm driving, or is it you? Yeah, so I think this is a really interesting story. I was wondering if it was going to tie back to the American healthcare system, if it was like the mom had to do the birth log to afford giving birth with medical attention.
That would have been so good, because like by the end of the story, when the author asks the mom, like, they don't outright ask the mom if you know of this thing, but they just say like how is it like to give birth to me? And the mom has this sort of faraway look in her face where it was like painful, it was traumatic, however it was like worth it. So there's this sort of like notion of like the faraway look in her face. Is it because she does remember doing this, and maybe she did have to do this because there was something like a doctor had told her that the baby was turned around in the stomach, and that the only way we could do this is like a C-section or some sort of different birthing style. However, this organization heard of her and was like, we can do this in a way that is not going to be that expensive, but this is what you have to do for us, kind of thing. And then it's like the mother having to go through these lengths to give birth to you. That's why there's a faraway look in her eyes where it was traumatic, but she had to do it, and within this like reason. But I hadn't thought of that, but that does make sense.
Yeah, and I think there's also like, it's very solid like horror territory to do something about like birth and like the trauma of birth and like the issue, like, you know, issues in our culture with like the medicalization of it, and sometimes like how women are treated, whether or not like certain like you know, it can be a very compromising thing. It can be like a very traumatic experience to go through. I mean, it's not something I can personally, you know, speak to from experience, but I think that is like it's an aspect of horror that is very real for women creators are kind of speaking more to this. Women writers of horror have kind of discussed this in some ways. So I think that there is it's another deep well to go into, and tying that in with kind of like the nature of the internet and like the commodification of pain and suffering or trauma is another very effective aspect of the story, I think.
Yeah, and I did want to have the stats on hand just in case like I went on a tangent about it, but this is an article from updated in January 3, 2023, which is the average cost of childbirth in the U.S. on an average is like $18,865, which this article says that health insurance can cover most of that cost, but like without health insurance, which is a struggle for a lot of people, like you can leave with like a hefty hospital bill. We've seen those videos of like, I was charged for skin to skin contact with my baby, like blah blah blah, that kind of thing. And then with regards to like maternal mortality rates in the United States, it's even up to now, like 2020, for it seemed to have gotten higher from 2018 to 2020. So let's say like non-Hispanic, on the CDC website, non-Hispanic Black women in 2018, it was like 37.3 out of, what is deaths per 100,000 live births? It was like 37, and then it has gone up to like 55. Wow. So there's the horrors of that. I think it would be cool to have like an offshoot of this story to be like, do you know of the birth log? Well, I was a part of it.
Right.
I had to do it because of the expenses, sort of thing, because then that would be a whole nother. That would be cool. And I'm not going to write that because I don't have that sort of brain thought. But somebody out there, don't be like, I heard it from a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, the perspective of the child is one, but then the mother's perspective of this experience would be another angle that would be, I think, an interesting story or an interesting way to examine, and you could definitely tie in themes of the issues with the birthing and in our culture. Yeah. So that was
real intense. Real intense in there, and but it's true.
Yeah.
The U.S.
Got some issues.
Hoorah.
Got some issues.
Right. But yeah, that's I do I did want to touch on like privacy on the internet as well here, because I think I mentioned to you I was going to do that, and I was going to touch on like family vloggers, but I was just like, I'm going to give myself a headache.
that might get a little dark as well, probably.
Yeah, because I had several articles about like children or like groups of children suing parents who were doing it. I was like, you know what, JD, do something for your mind.
Yeah, that's some horrendous shit there.
But that's been. We're in my head. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna be using the theme for ice cream, but it's like the dark.
We're using the dark theme on this one. So
dark theme. We're stealing it. We're using the ice cream song from the Jiu-Jitsu thing.
Ice cream.
Yeah, I've gone up to episode 8 on that one, which is after the Tomie one. I do have some opinions that I will tell Ben after this, and I will not alienate.
I'm looking forward to hearing that. All right. Well, shall we read out?
So this episode was written and produced by Ben and JD. For all our sources, please head to the website in the description below. If you would like to reach out with a comment, suggestion, or share an experience with one of our topics today, please do not send us a scary video from the internet. Do not do that. We will find you. Send us a message at icecreamyoubeam@gmail.com. All of the music for the podcast is provided by Yager Frank. I'm so sorry. I keep forgetting. But thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Bye!